Hi guys, and welcome back to Pass the Move. And for today's episode, as promised, it is the last game of the season, and after that we'll be concluding our whole season as a whole. What happened, which players performed well, which didn't perform well, who we be looking to let go of, and maybe some of the players or positions that we're considering to bring in players for the new season. We won't be showing you any sort of summer transfer business. I don't think I want to do that type of episode, pre-season and all that sort of business. I think the next episode will actually just be from the start of the next season. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So we'll just show you what's been going on in the past games in just a second. But I'm sure you guys have noticed we just qualified for Europa League. We didn't qualify for the Champions League. Unfortunately, we did miss our aim of qualifying for the Champions League. But in terms of the board expectations, we're perfect. We're completely fine. We qualified for the Europa League, and that's all that mattered. In terms of the season preview, they actually expected us to end in fourth, which is where we ended. So that's decent enough. But yeah, kind of disappointing to end this way, just 4 points away from Sporting, considering how we performed. But just to give you an idea, the first half of this season, we were the third team with the most points, 31, and only Porto and Benfica were better than us. And Sporting, as you can see here, they were on 26 points, so we were 5 points ahead of them at that stage. But in the second half of the season, they really kicked off, and as you can tell, they got the maximum points out of anyone possible. They won 13 of the 16 played and just lost the 3 only. So they had one hell of a second half of the season. They outperformed Porto and Benfica, and of course Porto, as you know, have won. They were the ones who performed most consistently. Both times they were in second position with 39 points there and 33 points here. So it's disappointing that we performed in terms of points in third position for both of them. It was just that Sporting just had one hell of a run in the second half, and that kind of backfired on us. Our inconsistencies, our draws. Sporting, as you can see here, 16 games played, 13 wins and just 3 losses. So huge numbers. Maybe to get a better idea, we can check the past positions. So there you go. So, in the beginning of the season, you can kind of expect this sort of business. We were actually in second at one point. We dropped quite heavily. There's a bit of a couple worrying episodes, as you guys noticed there. But we managed to climb, and then eventually we were in third for quite a while there. And it became down to fourth for a little bit, then third, then fourth, and just eventually just fourth. And as you can see, Sporting's little run there, this is the period where we dominated, but they managed to hold on longer than us and eventually climb above us and go ahead of us, I suppose. But yeah, at least it's good to see that someone else won the league this year rather than Benfica once more. In the past 3 seasons, Benfica have won the Portuguese Premier League, or the Primeira Liga. And so it's good to see, even though we didn't break up the big 3 just yet, it was good to see that someone else won the league this time around instead. But yeah, we managed to meet the board expectations. We didn't meet our own expectations of trying to qualify for the Champions League. So hopefully we can do that next season with some new fresh faces. But yeah, in terms of what happened since the last episode, we did show you that 3-0 defeat to Sporting. Very disappointing. That of course didn't help with them going on to having more of a lead ahead of us, I suppose. We beat Martimo and we beat Benfica. The very disappointing result that kind of solidified everything for us was actually the Aruca game, and that's where Jeff managed to go from hero to zero. He scored in the second minute, really opened up things for us perfectly. Santos did manage to equalize for his team, but Jeff got sent off in the 31st minute, and after that it was very unlikely that we were going to score, and that's how the game ended. But in terms of the other results, Martimo, Jeff again the hero, he's having really good games since being dropped for Bata for a short time. Santos also getting a brace, including a penalty. And in this Benfica game, we were very dominant in this game, and actually they were lucky to get a 90th minute goal through Jonas. But it was Fonte through a free kick and Cartabia who managed to score in the 55th minute as well, either side of the half, either side of the halves of football. And it was just a dominant performance all around. I don't think they necessarily deserved that one goal, but they got it in the end, and that's all that matters. But yeah, this result was definitely the one that hurt us the most, and sealed our fate in fourth position, I guess. In today's game, we're not really playing for anything in particular, and this is the team we'll be going with. I think we actually do have our winger, Wilson Eduardo back, but he finally recovered from his injury. But of course, first of all, he lacks fitness. Second of all, Alan's announced his retirement plans. We didn't give him a new contract, and I think he's kind of sensing that we won't, considering his level of ability. Since we're not really really have nothing to play for, I think because the fans love him and he's been around in Braga for ages, I think almost 10 seasons now. I just kind of felt bad at just not, leaving him out of today's game and putting on our first team. So I'm giving Alan some game time for today's game, and we can sub him off for, a hero's ovation, I suppose. But yeah, that means Wilson will be on the bench, and this is the team we'll be going with. And I think we can kick off kind of a standard first team, other than Bata having to come on for Jeff, of course, who was suspended, being sent off twice since we signed him in January. So I fined him for 2 weeks' wages, and he kind of just accepted it this time round, acknowledging how he played a part in the team's failure to qualify for Champions League. But yeah, otherwise, standard, straightforward first team. And I think hopefully we'll get to watch a good game. And after the game, we can discuss about who performed well, just conclude the season as we mentioned earlier. And just really discuss what positions we need to address in the summer transfer window. And that way, when we show you the next episode in the beginning of the next season, you won't be surprised to see some players being brought in or whatever. And yeah, a little other small update rather. Players like Marcelo Goiano and Pedro Santos, who I was very worried to miss out on Pedro Santos. I did promise both of them to stay on this season to not win the Champions League, sorry, that would be incredible, to qualify for the Champions League. They actually gave me one more season's time. They said we're happy to see that we came really close to qualifying for Champions League. We can understand the circumstances, and so we'll give you one more season. We won't try and force our way out this season, which is great because Santos was so important to us. But yeah, hopefully maybe we can get a result here. This is one more game. We're at home. We might as well give the fans a nice little send-off and perform well. Of course, our goalkeeper Moreira is the one who's going to be playing. I think, if I'm not mistaken, our first team goalkeeper is actually injured. And either way, I want Moreira to be playing more frequently the more time goes on, because he actually has potential to be a leading or even star player for the division, and we need that more likely to happen than Moreira, who's just a good player for the division. And we'll see his average rating at the end of this episode, but I would assume is pretty poor considering how he's had some really off games. But anyways, Valencia have a chance to put a good ball into the box here for a set piece, and it looks like we kind of dealt with it. For some reason, that's considered a clear-cut chance, but either way, we come away with it, and I think we'll give it a bit more time, and then we can actually push up into control. They don't seem to be too attacking. They're playing with a 4-1-3-2, defensive midfielders, central midfielders, and two strikers up top. I think it's like a 4-4-2, but basically a little bit more defensive. Not entirely as defensive as a 4-2-2-2, where it's a 4-4-2, but you're playing two defensive midfielders. But yeah, still definitely more defensive than a 4-4-2. Question is what we're going to do here. Santos has got the ball. Hassan plays it safe to Alan. Alan in his last game for Braga. What's he going to do? Is he going to be able to do anything? Bata got the ball now though. Yeah, just keeping possession, keeping things ticking over really. Fonte, advanced playmaker. Alan through to Hassan, through to Bata. Is he going to score? Yes, of course. Why would I even doubt that? Top left corner. I actually thought he'd go for the near post instead, but going to get a nice little replay of this again with a behind goal low. And it looks like we've managed to kind of pack out the stadium in the last game. See, this is what I was talking about to you guys about how only the big three really pack out their stadiums. The Sporting, Benfica and Porto are the ones who normally make a lot of money through matchday tickets. But I think we've steadily, maybe I'm seeing things, but I think steadily over the season we've actually seen Braga's home supports sort of step up. I think it used to be a bit emptier than I'm seeing it today. Obviously it's still kind of empty, but much better than the beginning of the season, I would say. I think the way we put in some performances actually have encouraged more people to come. Of course, if we qualify for the Champions League next season, I would encourage even more people to come. But if we do make some seriously good investments, then there's no telling. We can maybe actually... Alan, is he going to score? Oh, he scores on his final game for Braga, and that is definitely poetic. Yeah, if we make some serious investments in some really good players, then there's no reason why we can't actually challenge for the title. I know we're some way off this season, but we have beaten all of Porto, Benfica and Sporting, all on separate occasions. So, the quality is kind of there. I don't think we're too far off. If we make some good investments, then you never know. I mean, Porto broke up Benfica's 3-game winning run. And my assumption would be over the summer period that a lot of Porto's, Sporting and Benfica's talented players will actually move on to other clubs. Bigger clubs, the likes of Europe's biggest ones, Barca, PSG, those type of players. Those type of teams, they always come in and steal some Portuguese talent from these leagues, because of course the players are valued at a lot cheaper than they actually are. So, you know, that it just to show you, I think I showed you guys in other episodes where we've sold players who wanted to go. I think Vuk is someone that we sold to Vigo, and his value increased double once he made that move, and that's just kind of why, you know, just because he's in the Spanish league and he's in a team like Vigo as well. So, you know, Portuguese teams, we just kind of have players valued a little bit cheaper than usual. So, and yeah, I think other than that, there's no real updates since the last episode. I think maybe I forgot to tell you guys in the last episode, but we did get a whole new batch of youngsters, of course, some regens, and it'll be interesting to see who from the youth team, actually, not from the regens, of course, that'll be a bit too soon, but who from the youth team can actually step up to our team this year, and that way we don't really need to invest in anyone else. Maybe we can try and trust our youth a bit more. Who's ready for Premier Liga football? We'll have a look at that in just a moment as well. Actually, after this game, we can have a quick look. But yeah, I don't want to conclude for too long. I don't want this episode to be too long. It is kind of a pointless game. It's just to try and wrap up the final three points for our team, and also so that we don't end too far away from Sporting. If they lose their game, then it doesn't look too bad for us that we ended the season on 64 points and they ended it on 65. That looks a lot closer, and I think that's a bit more of a fair reflection of how it was always us neck and neck with each other. The good thing was that we actually also managed to end the season, or we will end the season not too far off from Porto and Benfica in terms of points, in particular Porto because they won the league, of course, considering how it was at one point, I think 12 points away, but because we defeated both of them, we managed to get away with it. Fonte through to Hassan, is he going to score, and is he onside? Apparently the answer to both those questions is yes, and we're coming away with 3 points and 3 goals to our name so far. The question is, are we going to score more? 18 shots to Belin says 5. Kind of a very dominant performance, and considering we haven't created a single clear-cut chance, it's good for me to see that my players can score. Chances aren't necessarily clear, or that they have to put away. I mean, the game doesn't consider that a clear-cut chance, but I would, of course. He's one-on-one with the keeper. It's a bit weird how the game doesn't consider some chances as that and whatnot. Fonte is tired, we'll take him off for Martinez. We have to save one substitution for Alan, of course, to give him a little bit of a send-off and a standing ovation, and we'll do that as well. So we've brought on Martinez and Moro, advanced playmaker and an anchorman, so that should sort of solidify our clean sheet while also maybe not letting off the pedal, I guess, acceleration, whatever you want to call it. The point is, hopefully we get one more goal, and it'll be good to see. You know, as I always mentioned, the 3-0 result was perfect for me. 1-0, you're scraping by, but it does show good defensive solidity. 2-0, you're very at risk of being complacent. 3-0 is just a dominant performance, and as you can see, Balenciaga have gone into a defensive formation already, like a defensive state of mind, defensive mentality, I suppose. Not sure what you call these, yeah, mentality. So just because we've gone into 3 goals basically, so they know that they don't want to ship anymore. They want to try and have a good goal difference in comparison to everyone else. So for the last 10 minutes, we'll give Alan his standing ovation and give Wilson some game time as well at the same time. Last game of the season, but might as well, you know, show him that we stood by him when he went through that terrible injury that kept him up for a good 3 months. If we had him, who knows, we might have actually qualified for the Champions League. I would say, despite Alan having some decent performances, Eduardo might have been able to have stepped up in some situations, I suppose. But anyways, we'll never know now. That's just the reality of the situation. And referee should blow his whistle any moment now, and we can start to discuss which players had a good season, good average ratings, and you know, who scored the most goals, most assists, that type of thing. Player of the matches, all that business. We'll have a quick look at it, and at the same time, we'll be able to evaluate our own players. So there you go. 3-0, great, perfect way to end the season. Good way to send the fans off, and no one else has actually really played a game. I want to see if Sporting were going to perform poorly or not. But yeah, we'll just let the game save it, and then we can start to have a look at our players. Looks like the referee had an incredible game as well, 9.3. Can I sign the referee? But yeah, Fonte, key passes. He was the man of the match for today's game, I suppose. And he was a key player too. 2 assists, can't ask for more. Okay, so let's leave that. doesn't really matter anything else now. So selection info, there you go. Alright, so appearances. In terms of appearances, Pedro Santos, very key man for us, of course, that's normal. Goiano as well, he's been featuring first at left back so often that I actually forgot about Javan. He only made 6 starts and 1 substitution. I feel really bad for him, but really there never was a serious instance where I need to take off Marcelo for an extended period of time. He always put in consistent performances, and will, you know, that 7.05 rating kind of tells its own story. So these 4 players here seem to be, or 5 players seem to be the most key players, and that's kind of good because it's sort of our spine, I suppose. Pinto, the ball playing defender, Marafona as well, goalkeeper, Assis, the anchor man. It makes sense to try and keep that spine as you know, as consistent as possible. And it looks like we didn't rotate too often this season, but the likes of Thomas Martinez, for example, made 34 appearances as a substitute, so that's not too bad. Obviously it's still a substitute, but at least he's getting some game time, some minutes under his belt. We did rotate a fair amount, but there are some players who didn't get too much game time. Velasquez, we barely played him because of course he was on loan and we had enough centre backs already. We kept him just in case because, you know, we lost one of our centre backs. Javan, as I mentioned, you know, he's just unfortunate that his play was too consistent, his competitor. Trupe as well just came in January, so not too much to expect in terms of appearances. Cartabia, probably the one who might be a bit upset, but again, he's a player on loan. I don't have to worry about, you know, really playing him too often, but he did have 33 appearances off the bench, so again, you know, he could have some impact in that way, and that's how players should try and force their way into the side. In terms of goals, kind of straightforward. Eduardo, Santos, Nicola and Hassan getting the majority of the goals in the team. Only 3 of them, however, did hit double digits, so it's quite disappointing. We need more, obviously, need more goals from other players, because that's what we need to look forward to, of course. We need more players, but at least it's good to see that, you know, everyone's scoring goals, I suppose, but we would need one player at least getting 20 goals plus so that we can really perform. But it's good to see that out of the players who got double digits, both of them are inside forwards and one is a striker, and that's exactly what we need. In terms of assists though, Santos tops that, and you know, I think he's had a very good season for us, a very key man. He's managed to get double digits for goals and assists, so that's perfect as an inside forward, especially when he's playing on support. He'll have to put in a good ball and, you know, good cross in basically. So in terms of average ratings as well, some very good performances from Jorge, Pinto, Santos, Eduardo, Velasquez for the, you know, he didn't play too many games, but at least it's had some good average ratings. Fonte as well, perfect to see from an advanced playmaker. He's got 8 assists and 4 goals, not too bad, but yeah, we might maybe need a couple more assists than that. Jeff as well, despite him coming in quite recently, he's managed to get 15 appearances and 2 off the bench, as well as 2 goals, 2 assists and a 7.6 average rating, so that's really good as well. The good thing to see is that Bata as well, our supposedly backup ball-winning midfielder, has had 3 goals to his name. He's also had some decent amount of appearances and a 7.05 rating, so that's perfect for us. In terms of who's performed poorly, I'd say Cartabia has had quite a quiet season considering the amount of games he's played. You could say the same about Allen. I would say 6.8 is solid but not too great. He's managed 5 goals though, to be fair to him. I think a couple of them were penalties, but for a player who's not ready for the Premier League at all, well, he started the season as a decent Premier League player, but he ended it as, I think, just rated as a good player for most second league sides. So I think that, you know, tells us on story, I suppose. Nicola as well, I think that's kind of Nicola both and Hassan actually, both are strikers not having an outstanding season, which is quite disappointing. None of them stood out. Both of them had 20 plus appearances, even 30 plus if you consider the ones on the bench, and neither of them really made their mark on the team, and I don't think any of them are really first teamers in terms of, you know, Hassan, we put him as first team, but then he started to perform poorly. Nicola, when he was first team, he performed poorly, and then when he became rotational, he started performing well out of nowhere. So it's just like neither of them can handle the pressure of being a first team striker for Braga just yet. So maybe hopefully next season that'll be solved. If either of them ask to go away, that'll be actually kind of suited to us, so that way we can actually bring in a star striker ready to go, because I don't think Nicola or Hassan are leading players for the division. So he's good and close to his potential, and he's okay. So Hassan's leading, but for some reason he's not really performing that way. At least maybe he'll get some getting used to our team. He's technically a target man, but he definitely can play as a false nine. He's got the attributes for it. He's definitely comfortable with it in terms of his role and duty and whatnot. He plays his back to goal. He comes deep to get the ball. It all suits it really. You know, he's got the vision and passing, which is very key to a false nine. and the finishing as well. So I'm not really sure why. Maybe he just needed a little bit of an adjustment period. We'll find out next season. But yeah, in terms of the youngsters that maybe we can bring in, so let's have a look. As you guys know, there's a couple who are coming up from loan. We've mentioned them already: Danilo, Juankar, Martins. All these players we can consider selling some of them, or maybe keeping some of them if they are ready for the first team. I'll say definitely Danilo should be a key player for us next season. Let's say for the likes of Bruno Horde, he's ready for the first team finally, Premier League football. He's a deep line playmaker, so he doesn't necessarily suit our tactics just yet, but I think if we retrain him as advanced playmaker, maybe he can take over from Thomas Martinez and perform a little bit better. Maybe he can improve his flair, but as you can see, a lot of his attributes are going on the rise as well, so we can consider loaning him out one more time maybe, or even playing him in our first team. We'll see how Martinez comes into the equation as well. I think sorry about that. I think pretty much that's the only thing. Everyone else is a championship level. In terms of Braga B though, because obviously we can move them to our first team as well, I think no one seriously contending. So, but we can keep an eye. Maybe they will improve over the summer period as well. These players should be improving a little bit better, of course, because they're also playing in the second league. They're not just playing for under-19s, they're actually playing in the Portuguese second league. And the way they ended their season was quite poorly, I would say. Yeah, mid-table, not good enough. 58 points out of 42 games. Mid-table, definitely not good enough. So Porto won the first, the initial division, and their B team managed to win the second league as well. What else was there to mention? I forgot. I'm forgetting it now. Yeah, in terms of the plans for the future, so training facilities are very close to being done. It's just going to be done in October, and I think sometimes, it doesn't always happen in the game, but sometimes during the game, because the summer period is a lot more free for construction, this gets completed over the summer period, even though it says completed by October. It's just because, we're not using the facilities necessarily, so it gets done a lot quicker. But it's good to see that the board held on. They're not necessarily going like, sometimes there's a lot of progress made and then they say we can't afford it anymore. So it's good to see. We've still got 8 million in the bank. We've got some decent, numbers here. We're going to survive, and some decent turnover, expenditure, all that sort of business. Financially, I suppose for future, it's not looking too great, but maybe we can turn that around with Champions League football next year. Well, if we do qualify, of course. But I think that's it. I think that's pretty much everything we need to mention. In terms of who's going to be going, the definites who are going, everyone else will see. The Truppier has to obviously go back because he's on loan. Velasquez as well, and Crotavia. So that means we definitely need a right back, a centre back, and a winger. The thing is, we actually need 2 wingers and 2 centre backs because Velasquez is leaving, but Pinto's also going to Sporting in the 1st of July. So that's that's already 4 players we need, and then Truppier is leaving as well. That makes it 5 players. We don't have too much of a budget, so we actually have to bring in some players from the under-19s. We might actually have to bring in some loan players as well. We'll see how it goes, but maybe the finances will improve over the summer period as well. But yeah, I think that'll definitely be the end of today's episode. We'll be back for the next season, the first game, so keep an eye out on that. And if you did enjoy today's episode, then please do hit the like button and subscribe for more daily Football Manager 2017 content. And as always, guys, thank you all for watching.